KD3HT in the group, W2SDR. Sorry I didn't mention the temperature. It hit 60 today. It's 59 now. It was a nice day. Took my 4-mile walk today, this afternoon, and just a very light hoodie sweatshirt. And it's beautiful. Very nice day. Yeah, Gladys Knight from Gladys Knight and the Pips did an excellent job on the Star Spangled Banner. You know, not everything you see, not every movie you see, not every baseball game you watch is the best baseball game you've ever seen in your life. You know, it's just one more thing to do. And I never need a reason to have friends over, to have a party, and have the game in the background, and, you know, have some food and enjoy company. And, you know, it doesn't have to be the best thing I've ever seen to enjoy myself. As far as Valentine's Day, I never really was that big into that. You know, it's just it's a nothing. I'm pretty much a birthday person. You know, it's a personal issue. The rest of these holidays are, you know, I don't know. I don't listen to I don't really watch the news anymore. So the hype or the rest of it, I don't see. I don't hear it. So. And it was fun. My son and I had a really nice time down there in the shack. You know, talking, tuning around with the radios, had the game on, ordered a pizza. You know, it's a lot of fun. Let me see. I wrote down FW. George, I heard you check in with the AM rally with the station W1AW. I was on my walk yesterday, and I listened to K3HT, the web SDR, on my iPhone. So I had my earbuds in, and I listened to all the stations checking in, and that was a lot of fun yesterday. The AM rally, lots of stations checking in. So I heard you, George. I heard, you know, lots of guys that I know, lots of folks that I didn't know. It's very enjoyable listening to that all day, all weekend. So kudos to the ARRL for putting that Gates on the air yesterday, the BC1T. It sounded very good, and it was a lot of fun, very, very much fun. Yeah, as far as amplifiers go, I won't have any amplifier that I can't pick up, I mean, it's gone too far at that point, so that's why I've gone, I have this AL82 now, it's very heavy, it's about 80 pounds, but I can pick it up, I don't have really any back issues, so, but I've gone pretty much solid state for my main stuff, and I won't be buying any more tube equipment. Stuff I have, I'll keep the AL82, which I think is a fantastic amp. I have an AL80A that I had bought brand new. God, it's almost 30 years old now, so that's a keeper. So, yeah, Gladys Knight, excellent voice. She hasn't lost a thing. Very nice. As far as people kneeling, where do you hear that? I didn't see any of that. I guess the news media was probably commenting on all that stuff, but there wasn't a mention of it during the game at all. But I guess right wing would mention it, left wing would mention it. That's why I don't watch that stuff anymore, man. It's a waste of time. All right, David, back to you. Welcome aboard, Rich. Nice signal. Back to you, David. N9PVF in the group, W2SDR.
Okay, thanks. W2SDR and N9PVF. I enjoyed the that I did at that 3705. So I talked to some new stations. Larry somehow heard me. Anyone that's heard me on the spur. And I don't know if he actually heard me on the replay we did for you, Rich. So I hunted you down this morning on 3720. You got off that and you out. You couldn't understand why I was trying to get the value. That was sorry. get more power on 160 sideband. So when I check in, if I try to check into top band AWA net on Monday, people can hear me. So anyway, that was why this what initiated the quest of trying to get this thing to work on 160, which it didn't. All right. One way or another. So the thing I got to be sure of, because it's not intuitive, is the degree of loading on these high network outputs is inverse to the meshing of the cap. Variable capacity. So when the capacitor is unmeshed, or fully unmeshed, that's the maximum loading. If I have that wrong, I sort of tune for the power I want, or for the power to peak. But I want to get that concept straight. Some things, pretty straightforward. Other things are not. Maybe Steve, if you're listening, I want to build a 1.8 volt Zener power supply, which won't supply any power, just a voltage standard 746 Pro. And that'll keep the ALC where I want it, and gives me an okay sounding AM rig. So right now I'm using 3 or 4 diodes to do a drop and a resistor in it, and I'm tapping off of them. And it's just shorting the battery all the time. So if I decide to, can't buy the Zener, I'll buy all the other parts, put a battery in it, and light the box. So it's been a long time since I did anything with Zener design, but I was guessing if I put like a K-ohm resistor,
the right way to do it.
Zener, power supply, that should limit the current to a reasonable level. And then just at the top of the Zener, run the line out to the RCA jack. And by the way, Frank, my particular total line will never carry the track driver meter. It just doesn't show up on the computer. Tell me I can go to Framingham, somewhere else, what they want. So I bought my wife the Martini and Russell. And it goes back to N2LJO. And you do sound very nice on the setup you have, George. Very nice. N2LJO at N9PVF.
Okay, N2LJO returning. And yeah, if you haven't noticed, I haven't been on the 870 on AM since I got this thing going, so don't know if I ever will be again. At least for the near future. And yeah, Frank, I heard that transmitter yesterday before and after working them just to make the contact W1AW, and it sounded real good. And I don't remember who mentioned it a couple weeks ago. There was a video of Timmy with that transmitter. It was about 45 minutes, I think, and I watched it. And it was quite enjoyable, and it was nice to hear the thing on the air yesterday. And I have, and thank you for the compliment, David, by the way. I've been getting good marks overall. Someone said my negative peaks occasionally go over 100%. I've got to work on that. I don't know if I'm going to put a negative peak limiter in, but that's possible. I'm watching right now on my QIX mod monitor. I have an Icon 756, plain, no Pro or anything, out in my boat anchor shack, which is the only, other than my 2-meter 440 radio, the only solid state rig out there. And I had picked it up pretty cheap up at Southington, the Hamfest, I guess, probably 8 or 9 years ago. And the guy had the paperwork from Icon that he already had the screen changed. Because the person that I was with knew those things were notorious for the screens going bad, but he had already had it fixed. So I don't really use it that much, but it's there, and there are times when I don't want to wait for everything to warm up, or I'm only going to, be on for 2 seconds, and I will use it on AM. And I had heard about that negative voltage into the ALC not too long after I got the rig. And I tried it with a 9-volt battery, and son of a gun, it worked. So all I did was I took a wall wart, little project box. I think it was a 500K pot, and the rest is history. So I don't think you have to get that complicated. It works like a charm. You leave the power up all the way on the rig, and just dial down the carrier with the pot. And I think I took well, the 9-volt battery worked good. I think the original article I read said it was 5 volts, and I think I might have used like a 9-volt wall wart. I don't know. Probably doesn't matter if you got a pot in line. So that's my comment on that. I don't know why I'm like losing my voice over here. Rich, here it comes. N2RY in the group, N2LJO.
Alrighty. I heard you guys on. You were on yesterday afternoon on like 3865 or something. I heard you down there with a couple of guys. Good signal. Yeah, it was like AM spikes all over the place. Wonder how they did the W1AW thing. If I assume they were opened over the weekend for people to be there, so must have been fun running the gates all weekend like that, and just a lot of people were out. So they were finding some guy over in Pine Plains, which is like 12 miles from here, who was up from the city. Caught him Friday night. Made him find the AM button on his Yaesu for the first time. So it was kind of fun. No, I wasn't too impressed with the game. Wasn't impressed because of who was playing. I guess it was a defensive game, for lack of a better term. 13-3 is that we qualify as a defensive game. Not what everybody, I'm sure, was expecting. But went over my daughters, had some food, enjoyed some good company, and left at the beginning of the fourth quarter and got home, and wasn't bad at all. Although I was fairly unimpressed with the commercials. There was only 3 that stick in my mind. The Bud Light and the Game of Thrones, the NFL 100, and the Amazon one with Harrison Ford. Other than that, they were pretty blasé, I thought, my opinion. I don't know if they were just trying to be too politically correct or what. I mean, they didn't have the flair and the Sam One flair of years past. So don't know what kind of squashed the creativeness of the commercials. So we'll find out. And it was funny, George, I was thinking of that as they were finishing up the third quarter. I'm like, yeah, this is like getting close to the beginning of Georgia's season. So as soon as this game is over, Georgia's season starts. And I did mention that, and my wife kind of looked at me. I'm like, Yankee fan, and she just nodded. So, good signal so far. KD3HT in the group, N2RY. Huh.
I guess that's about where it's at. So George, I'm happy you're enjoying that rig. Hope it continues to work well for you. Look, Gates has been on quite a bit. even before the AM rally. Lots of one of the guys that I guess works here gets on a lot with it. I guess they have problems hearing when they're sending bulletins out though. Kind of takes their receiver out. Yeah, I didn't hear him on 40 meters, although I guess I was out doing stuff at the time. I would have tuned up to 40. So I didn't hear what was going on up there. Somebody mentioned today there was some activity on 20. I have to, maybe this week I'll climb my tower and take down the antennas out there and start getting the other antenna ready to go up. See if we can make something happen on 20 meters. I don't know if 10's been open either. I guess a couple guys that were close, got on 6 and made contacts all around. Remember years ago when Dale and a couple other people got together and made AM International. They had a contest on, and you got more points for working different bands or something, or a special certificate if you worked every one of the bands. And Rick, not too far from me, he and I got on and worked all the bands so we could have that in our log and send it in. I still have that hanging up here. Nothing's been going on with that for a while. I guess it might have been around the same time. Geez, that was back in 1995, so a few years ago. Yeah. So, Rich, I went out and looked around, and I think I identified the trees to use. It's going to be a little bit torturous in the middle. I'm going to have to shoot over a couple, trees in the middle to clear them and pull it up that way. So it's not, a copper weld scenario is probably not going to be something that I'll be able to do. But I'm missing a couple fittings I have to go out and get. I probably would have stopped on the way home today to get them for the data gun, but since I didn't go in, couldn't do that. So I still have to hunt that down. And I think you're using a 160 meter dipole, Rich? Is that basically what the length is there that you have? Because that's, after looking at a lot of things, it's probably what I'm going to end up with. I'll just 160 meter dipole fed with open wire line, and have that terminate here in the shack into another tuner. I have another tuner here that's waiting for it, so each of the wire antennas will terminate into its own tuner to make it easy to leave them somewhere or adjust them. Then we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I didn't hear from Chuck yesterday at all, so hopefully his brother's doing good. I know Ed went out. We talked to him yesterday morning. He went out and played disc golf, so he probably had a good day. He sent me about a DX Products, a DX Engineering 160 meter antenna for like $999. It looked like, basically a top-loaded vertical, but it needs a lot of ground radials around it. It's actually cheaper to just get a high tower. Still looking for one of them. If I saw one of those come up at the right price, I think I'd snatch it up and put up a high tower. They seem to be something that works out pretty good. So, over to you, Frank. This is KD3HT.
KD3HT in the group. Good time in W2SDR. Well, the high tower doesn't work well on 160. It's really bad. if that's what you wanted to use it for, you'd be very disappointed. The 160 kit is just a big base-loaded loading coil, and it's extremely narrow-banded. My 160 antenna here is a dipole, a half-wave dipole, and it's off the same feed point as this antenna. Just tacked on another inverted V onto the same feed point, and that's that. And I get good bandwidth, and 160, I feed it with 8267 RG213 Belden, so even at the band extremes, I just use a tuner. I don't have a ballon. I don't believe in those things. They're just an accident waiting to happen, and it works out great. I guess if you have the room. Inverted L's work very well at 160, but I wouldn't waste your time or money on a high tower. They're okay on the other bands, but I know you're operating. I think, Steve, your operating pattern, and it's not for you. My opinion. Commercials, I agree with you, Rich. I like those particular commercials too. They were okay. Actually, I didn't pay that much attention to them this year. I was too busy talking, I guess, during the commercials, so I didn't pay a lot of attention to them. Martini and Rossi, it's always a good vermouth. It's always a good choice. I would be very surprised, David, if they wouldn't make sure that they had the Noily Pratt for you. These liquor stores are very accommodating. Say, I'm a customer and I'll buy it if you have it. And I know my local stores will do that, so it might be worth a mention. But Martini Rossi is very good, and I would not use that Zener business. That's my opinion, David. I would probably use, I only need a 1.5 volt battery and a 1 meg pot in this rig. At the most, you'll need a 3 volt source with a 1 meg pot. With a 1 meg pot as a voltage divider, the battery will last literally months and months and months. I've had the same AA 10 light battery in here for about 9 months. And a lot of times I've left it on. I've got a switch. It draws no current virtually with no current limiting resistors, none of that stuff. 1 meg pot, 3 volts worth of battery, and a switch. That's all you need. And you'll want to vary your drive power with the pot on the ALC circuit, not the radio. You want to keep your radio full power. I think somebody mentioned that, Rich or George. So that's the right way to do it. I mean, you could do it any way you want, but that's the right way. And as far as the 870 goes, George, it doesn't even come close to this radio. So the radio you're on now, I would relegate the 870 to slot bucket and CW, and that's it. And I think I commented on just about everything. David, you're right. Loading, heavily loaded is always to the right, which is less meshed. And follow the instructions in the owner's manual. That's always the best case scenario. Follow those directions on tune-up. And another good compendium on tune-up is Roush, Tom Roush, W2SDR, who designed all the Ameritron amplifiers. And he has got a great compendium on his site, W2SDR, on tuning up amplifiers and the right way to do it. But you can never go wrong with the owner's manual. N9PVF, W2SDR.
W2SDR, N9PVF. No, I understand max power on the dial, adjust power with the external pod ALC. Rich heard me yesterday on the 746, so he said I sounded better than I did in the morning before I had the voltage set right. I gotta buy a 1 mega pot, so I just have to get my butt somewhere to do it. And George, I'm in Holden near Worcester, Massachusetts, so if you kind of know where Worcester is, That's where I is. So if the guy who can work on it is strong, then we'll be able to pull it out of the car. I can get my son-in-law to put it in the car, take it to the guy, let him work on it, have him put it back in the car, and then wait for my son-in-law to come. So that's a workable scenario. So I give you my firstborn grandchild. You only have one daughter, and she hasn't done anything yet, but I give you my firstborn grandchild, Rumpelstiltskin, if somebody can come over and do it. But anyway, I was looking it over. There are mouse turds all inside of it.
Gosh.
This was half of an acorn eaten. So maybe it wasn't a tuning issue. Maybe it was a mouse turd issue that shorted shit out. Who knows? Did I get everything? And Rich, you're sounding terrific today, whatever you're doing. But N2LJO, George, I think you got that 720 from Rich or Steve. I don't remember which one of the two. But, very good. N2LJO and N9PVF. Well, we got 10 minutes before it's dark right time. Pick it up. If I'm not here on the next go-around, I'll be back after I've done the dishes. This is N9PVF.
Let me just jump in here for a second. David, I've sent you a picture of my little ALC battery gadget. Go ahead. W2SDR, thanks.
Okay, no problem. Very good. Yes, you definitely want to leave the power pot on the rig all the way up. That's the whole idea. And, I did get them from Steve, and I said thank you. Originally, probably should say thank you again. Steve gave me a good deal. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of fun, I'll tell you that. And I'm sure at some point or another, Frank, there will be a day when I get on for 10 minutes with the 870. Because when I change frequencies, I've got to tune the amp with the 870. So I've got to hit the mic switch, hit the coax switch, turn on the 870, set CW, how many watts, all of that. And so I'm sure there will be a day. I don't know if I'm going to bring that Ranger in here that's out on the bench once I get that done, because then I could leave one up in the window and one down here, but I don't know. We'll see. But I know this sounds good, and that means a lot. And I'm glad I got it going. And, kind of like when I got the Globe King, I just heard a few people that sounded good with these rigs, and said to myself, I got to get me one of them, And yeah, my season, I just, I played a lot of ball when I was a kid, either punch ball, stick ball, stoop ball, off the wall. We'd go to the parade grounds and play actual hardball. I was in leagues, Little League when I was a kid, and in high school and all of that. And when the World Series would end, my friends and they would start playing, touch football. And I couldn't throw a football, and I could throw a baseball very well. So that, and the fact that my father never once talked about football. And we lived real close to where the Dodgers had been, but they were gone already when I was born. So I heard about the Dodgers and baseball, and I was raised a Met fan. So football just doesn't mean anything. And yes, it takes back in the day when I used to actually buy and read a paper. Who does that anymore? Anybody buy a newspaper? But back in the day, it would take about 2 or 3 days to purge like the last football story out of the sports section. And then all of a sudden, bam, 3-4 pages of baseball stories. I said, oh boy, this is great. So I'm looking forward to that. Anyway, N2RY and the group N2LJO.
Yeah, I kind of figured it was running through your head yesterday. Well, my hockey season still continues, so not much better now than it was 2 months ago. So I don't think Rangers have a chance of getting anywhere. They're at least 10 points out of a playoff spot, and not showing any signs of creeping up. I guess they could. Shouldn't write them off yet, but man, it's rough. A rough sports season for me. And since I'm not a baseball fan, I have nothing to look forward to until the fall. Oh no, wait a minute. I saw something last night. There's some new football league that's starting up in April. I just remembered that. They had Justin Tuck on the news last night. He's like involved with this thing. And I didn't catch where they were playing at, but it's like April through July or something, April through June. I forget what he's called. I don't know. Now we have to look it up. So I don't know. They've tried this a few times. Not sure how well it's going to go. But I guess this is like a league for the older players or something. That's how he was putting it. So we'll see. Let's see where that goes. Not sure it's going to go much of anywhere, to be honest with you, because nobody in the NFL is going to play because they're not going to risk getting hurt. So this is like for all the retired players or ones that never made it, I guess. So there is life after the Super Bowl, apparently, at least for this year. We'll see what happens. And you know what? I just thought of something. I never did the ALC trick on my 765 because I always fed the audio in through the balance modulator on the back. So I never really thought about it. I wonder if that must bypass the ALC, because I don't think I ever had a problem with my 765. So I don't know, David. You may want to take a look at the 746 and see if you can feed the audio in. If it got a balance modulator input on the back pins. I just thought of that. I should have thought of that yesterday. So that was my shining moment, my shining thought for the moment, I guess. What I did come up with yesterday is I think I'm going to put the Ranger back in the shelf, trying to get repaired. So I moved the Ranger in, and I have to go through the tune up and set up into the dummy load and see if it still works. It's been a while. I still have all the cabling and wiring to hook it into the amplifier, so you never know. N2RY.
Okay, Rich. Yep, that sounds like an easy thing to do. I haven't had either of mine on for a long time. But something made me, I know Jim was on, you were on, I think, Rich. I don't know if George was there or not. Saturday morning, W2SDR was on. And I think you had signed off, Rich. I'm not looking back at my log right now, so I'm trying to remember. I know Jim was on, 2 Jims, W2SDR, W2SDR. Oh, Sean was the other person that was on. And Jim has got a the low-power Millen transmitter. So he built the modulator, I guess, to go with that, or is building a modulator to go with that. But on the old military net, there was a gentleman out in, I think, Ohio, that was running a 500-watt Millen grid. And he built his own modulator for it. It sounded really good. Was it him, I think? Yeah, it's a pair of 812Hs and modulated by a pair of 811s. And I have not a milling rig, but I have a home brew rig that a friend of mine had made. And I bought it from his widow a long time ago. I bought his Ranger, his transmitter that he used, and he had an HQ129, and I have as well. I just have to make plug-in coils for it. I think I have them. I have enough bars, but I think the coils have, somewhat deteriorated. But it's just an amplifier. It's, it doesn't have any exciter in it, although I do have a couple of extra T368 exciters. That might be a little light driving, but that's an idea. One of the Rangers would, go with that 812 and work as the speech amp and then run in through the modulator. I think the only thing I had to do with that was rewire between the modules. Actually, the modules look pretty good. He used mostly oil caps in the thing, so there wasn't anything to replace. I'm trying to remember if the speech amp had the modulator. The feed is just at the transformer, so there is no speech amp. And so I don't think there were any capacitors here that I had to worry about. So I think it was pretty much all just interconnect wiring. And a lot of those guys back in the 50s used basically power cord. For the really high voltage. And so I have to do that. It's been sitting there waiting for me to get back to it for a while. Probably be a good accessory power supply too. It might pretty much have most of what I need on an ART13. I don't know what the bias is on it. I have to check that. But yeah, that seems like something I could get on, but I'd have to make space to it too because it's big pile of stuff in the middle of the room here has to move. So I'll have to get into that. Sometimes, George, I can get into baseball. I don't mind listening to baseball more than watching it, although watching it sometimes can be good as well. But I can listen to it, no problem. It's like perfect for, football's okay even listening. And heck, I even like listening to golf on the radio. It's not that bad because doesn't suck you in, and you can do other things while you're doing it without having to keep looking back at it. And you hear somebody hit a home run, okay, they hit a home run. Somebody walked, okay, they walked. So there's not many plays that you have to really want to have to see. And so. Okay, on the high tower. I guess you're right. It's only an 80-meter antenna, and they use the loading coil on the bottom. I've heard them on 80, and they've done pretty good. I've never worked one on 160. I once had a top-loaded antenna that sounded like the beginning of a poem, but it's not. I once had a top-loaded antenna that actually loaded really good on 160. Man, it was so noisy on receive. It just was really bad. And so, Frank, basically what you're doing is where I was expecting to go. And I wonder how you're feeding it. Are the feeds on your dipole at the same point, or are they like a foot apart where you're... I think your coax fed too. I'm not sure if your coax are open wire line, but you have to tell me that one and where you feed the dipoles. And I'm assuming that they're going in. I don't know if they're in the same direction or are they like 90 degrees to each other. The two sets of wires, like you have a 40 meter going north south and the 80 meter going east west, or are they both in the same plane? So Yep. Yeah, that's going to be the main thing. I got to get these fittings first to get this potato gun going, and then we'll be in good shape. And let's see, Rich, I don't know, man. That league, is it going to be touch football, I wonder? You know, or flag football. If it's older guys, I mean, they got to really be careful on how they bang into each other. Although it does give a lot of opportunity for other college players and stuff that continue to want to do that. I don't know. I'd prefer to watch, you know, female mud wrestling or something. That would be more exciting for me. But even that could get boring after a while. They should bring back, I don't know if they have it on anymore, but remember the roller rink and the skate bosses used to throw each other out of the rink? Could never understand that one. I guess somebody in the back had to pass so many people for so many points, but oh well. Alrighty. So over to you, Frank. W2SDR, KD3HT.
Let me see if David may be in here if he wants to jump in before he has dinner. David?
I'm going to get the call in a second, but okay. I'll look at that WHAI. I think I probably found it, but okay. I'll give up on the reader. I am so out of heart. Anyway, thanks for the thought, Frank, and I will catch you guys probably half hour. Eating clear.
I figured I'd give you a shot before you had dinner. I'm glad I did. So maybe we'll hear you later if I'm still around. W2SDR in the group? Okay. Well, I bought a bag. You know, eBay's always good for that stuff. Amazon.com. I use, I sent you a picture. Just one of those little trimmer pots. You know, you just grab it. You know, it's not a fancy, I don't build stuff like that in a box. I mean, I've even soldered the wires onto the battery. They last so long. I'm not going to build a special little box. Got the thing just laying here because I switch radios all the time. So I'll go back and forth here and just, you know, put it, you know, just unplug it and that's that. I don't have to be real fancy about it, that's for sure. So a little more Dean here, baby. All right, W2SDR. A couple of comments. Steve, my dipole's 160 and 80, not 80 and 40. And it's fed with coax, Belden RG213, Belgian 8267. And they're right in line with each other. They're not, you know, 90 degrees apart. And since the 160 meter obviously is much, much longer, they're inverted V's, so they have different end points. So it's, you know, your typical fan type dipole. Works great. One feed line. The best way to tune it is to do your lowest band first. So I tuned the 160 first, then trim the 80. And they've been up for 19 years. And I made the 160 out of copper weld because it's so long and that won't stretch. It'll last forever. It won't break. Just a little harder to work with because it's springy, but, you know, once you put it up, you don't have to worry about it anymore. So I got, you know, 19 years. No ballon because I have to use the tuner, you know, in certain areas, you know, when it's far away from resonance, and ballons just burn up. You have high SWR. You don't need a ballon. You only need ballons on Yagis. I don't care if I have feed line radiation. It's more vertical component. It's all radiating in the air for people to hear, you know. As far as high voltage wire, we all used to use, you know, high voltage anode wire. You know, that silicone wire? I never used coax for high voltage. They always had that wire. Old TVs, you know, the wire that goes to the plate cap on the high voltage, the flyback transformer, that type of wire. Works, you know, it'll take what, 5,000-6,000 volts easy. So that's what I used. I used to scavenge it from old TV sets. I have a big roll of it here too. It's red. It's that silicone insulation. As far as the 765, Rich, it needs a lot more than the ALC thing. I have a 751A. That's what I'm using here, and the 765 is basically the same transceiver, same circuit. And the problem is on sideband it transmits through, on AM it transmits through the sideband filter. 2.6, 2.3, whatever it has in there, and so it's crappy. The mods I did to this, I have a 20 kilohertz ceramic filter, and I built a diode matrix relay circuit that's put into the circuit when I go to AM and transmit, and then it goes into a 6 kilohertz filter that was an FL102 that was originally designed for your 765, but I put it in the 751. So that enables you to get essentially DC to light frequency response on AM. And the other key is you got to reverse the polarity because to get the most positive peaks. ICOM doesn't care about polarity because it didn't care about AM, so the mod polarity makes no difference on sideband, but it can make a dramatic difference on AM. So you want to select the polarity of your mic input for the most positive peaks in asymmetrical modulation. So that's my 2 cents on the 765 and the 751A and the coax dipole. Let me see, anything else? George, I realize what you're doing with the A70. I understand that. So, David is at dinner, so I'll turn it to the next guy, which is George. N2LJO in the group. W2SDR.
Okay, I left the hole just in case we had any late comers, but pretty much we had most of the band here anyway. Well, Ed or Chuck, we didn't hear from. But as far as parts and what David is talking about, and David, 7.3 for now if you're still listening. I don't know how far. I don't know if you have a speaker in the kitchen like some of us crazy people, but in terms of parts, I bought a lot of stuff from Radio Shack when they were in their last days. And I hate it. I would have rather not and have them still there. And a couple of times the last 2 weeks, I really had to scrounge for something. I had to use the part I pulled out of something else instead of, brand new. I miss them. What are you going to do, though? Somebody was talking about roller derby. Did they ever do that with men? I wouldn't watch that. I would watch the women, though. Just like wrestling. I never watched wrestling, but I definitely used to watch the gorgeous ladies of wrestling glow. Some of them were really very hot. Anyway, Frank, I meant to tell you, there was a box in this SDR Sharp software that was checked that doesn't apply to the SDR radio I'm using, and that was causing a mirror of a carrier on one sideband to appear on the other, and it was also putting a carrier dead center for some reason, but I unchecked that box and that problem went away. And I have had, since I put this antenna up in 2006, a 1-to-1 choke current balun up at the feed point, and before I had it there, I had RF in the shack, and there was a local noise that was hideous. And I had a similar parallel dipole up down in Brooklyn years ago when I had the balun on it. And my Elmer Mark, he reminded me when I put the antenna up and I was complaining about the RF in the shack. He said, did you put the 1-to-1 balun up there? I said, no. and I ordered it, W2DU, inline, put it up there, no more RF in the shack, and that local noise that I was actually starting to drive around trying to find disappeared. And I guess Hurricane Sandy was how many years ago? 6 or 7. My antenna came down and the balun, the choke balun was destroyed. So I strung the antenna up back temporarily while I waited for the new balun to come. And that same local noise from like 5-6 years before was there. And then when I put the balun on, it went away again. So, and they're known to help with that. So I wouldn't be without one. I mean, I might run legal limit on sideband, but, well, what do I run here? Maybe 300 watts from my Globe King. And I haven't had any problems with it. And the antenna, anything with coils that I ever had, was always very narrow. This antenna started out as an Alpha Delta DXCC, which was 10, 20, and 40, 3 antennas, and the 40-meter dipole had coils and stubs at the end that made it resonate on 80, but it was, you had to measure it like by the quarter inch because of the stubs, because it was only like 50 kc from 2-to-1 at one end to 2-to-1 at the other end. So after a year or two, I tossed the coils and the stubs and added a full 80-meter half-wave dipole. So now I have the 4 antennas, and I have separators, and they're all running the same way, and it's just really nice to have one antenna that basically works any way you want it, pretty much, and not have to be switching antennas. And what was the other? Oh, Rich, the hockey. When I was growing up, I was a Met fan. They were on Channel 9, and then the baseball season would end, and the hockey games would be on Channel 9 at the same time, like 8 o'clock at night. And when I was a kid, I don't know, maybe a month, I put the hockey games on. I sat there, and it was like I was watching a game on Channel 9 at 8 o'clock. It was cool, and it just did nothing for me. Sorry to say, but I know a lot of people love it. So, and I used to listen to a lot of games on the radio. Growing, I still do, actually. And it's, in some ways, it's actually more enjoyable because it makes you think more, about what's going on, how the outfield is positioned, what is the pitcher's favorite pitch, what's the count, how many outs, who's the outfielder in right field, does he have a good arm, where's the cutoff man, who's the catcher, all those things go through your head. And it's requires a little more imagination. And I was the kid in grammar school when we got out at 2:30 and the Met game started at 1 o'clock. I had the transistor radio in my pocket with the earphone under my clothes coming out my collar. Anyway, I'm going to pull the plug. I'll listen out. I'm going to go in and get dinner going. The wife's working. She left me sauce. Homemade sauce and meatballs. So all I have to do is boil water and cook pasta. Can't get better than that, right? So, Rich, here it comes. And it was good speaking with all of you gentlemen, as always. And look forward, perhaps, to doing so again soon. N2RY and the group N2LJO 73.
See you, George. I think everybody as a kid growing up at some point in their life listened to baseball games on the radio. That's how I got into shortwave listening. Built that first crystal set, 10 years old, and ran out the window, and I think I picked up a Cubs game in Chicago. And as a 10-year-old kid in Pittsburgh who never saw the world more than 15 miles from his house, that was the magic. That's where it grabbed me by the you-know-what and shook me around, and I guess that's why I'm doing this now. It's funny. Antennas and stuff. Mid-90s, I was licensed maybe 4 or 5 years. My second house wasn't very big, lot-wise. And God, I wanted a 160-meter antenna back. Just no way. And I just remember this one, W9INN antennas. They were trapped dipoles, and that was the only way I got on 160 back then. I had a pseudo 80 up, a 40 and a 20, but there was no way I could squeeze a 160 in except for that. Very narrow bandwidth, but I got on 160 with it, and I wasn't heavy. It ran the DX100 okay. I think it got mangled in a storm or something, or maybe I tried to run an amplifier through it, and that didn't work out well. But yeah, I still remember the guy's a silent key, no longer being made. But at that point in time, he got me on 1660, which was pretty good. And then after that, it was the next house that I went to. I had to be able to put up a 160 dipole, and well, this one worked out. I mean, I haven't heard Glow in a long time. I think there was actually a movie on Showtime or HBO or something, or a series, actually. And Steve, I forgot to mention that. There's also a flag football league that they're going to supposedly working on and coming out with. That would be very interesting to watch. I played flag football in my earlier time. I never had real speed, so it was always a challenge. But that's when you really see what people can do. They can move, and because you can't grab them and tackle them, you got to grab that little flag, and they were showing a few clips, so that might actually catch on. That could be